He let the tired alien rest on his porch, not knowing it was the Supreme Commander. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The old rocking chair creaked beneath the weight of the visitor as Nathan Brooks gazed curiously at the strange figure who had appeared at his remote Montana cabin just as dusk was settling over the mountains. Nathan had lived alone for the past 5 years, ever since retiring from his position as a military field medic. At 45, his hair had already gone salt and pepper, and the lines around his eyes had deepened from squinting in the harsh sun of various battlefields across the world. His cabin sat at the edge of a vast forest, miles from the nearest neighbor, just how he liked it. The solitude was a balm for his battle-weary mind. This evening had started like any other. Nathan had been sitting on his porch, nursing a cup of strong black coffee and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. His German shepherd, Max, had been dozing at his feet when suddenly the dog's ears perked up and he let out a low, cautious growl. Nathan had strained his eyes, peering into the gathering darkness. At first, he saw nothing, but then a figure emerged from between the tall pines. It moved with an odd, lurching gait, as if injured. Years of medical training kicked in, and Nathan found himself on his feet before he could think better of it. "Hello there," he had called out, his voice carrying in the still mountain air. "Are you all right?" The figure had paused, then continued forward, moving more slowly now. As it approached, Nathan realized why Max had been growling. This was no lost hiker or injured camper. The being that emerged into the clearing before his cabin was definitely not human. Standing at about 5 feet tall, the creature had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly in the fading light. Its body was humanoid, with 2 arms and 2 legs, but there the similarities ended. The alien's head was slightly elongated, with no visible ears and large, almond-shaped eyes that were entirely black. It wore what appeared to be some sort of metallic suit, torn and damaged in several places, revealing more of the blue skin beneath. The alien had raised a 4-fingered hand in what Nathan interpreted as a universal gesture of peace. Then, to his utter shock, it had spoken in perfect, albeit strangely accented, English. "Help, please." And now here they were, the alien seated in Nathan's spare rocking chair, wrapped in one of his old woolen blankets, while Nathan tried to process the fact that he was playing host to a visitor from another world. "You speak English," Nathan said, still struggling to believe what was happening. The alien nodded slowly. "We have studied your languages for many cycles. I am proficient in several." "What happened to you?" Nathan asked, gesturing to the tears in the alien's suit and the blue-black bruising visible on its skin. "My vessel encountered difficulties. I had to make an emergency landing. The ejection system was not optimal." The alien's speech was punctuated by small pauses, as if it was carefully selecting each word. Nathan nodded, understanding the universal language of a crash. "Are you injured?" "I was a medic in the military. I might be able to help." The alien seemed to consider this. "I have sustained what you would call contusions. Perhaps a fractured bone in this appendage." It gestured to its left arm. "But my physiology is self-repairing, given time and rest." "Like our immune system," Nathan mused. "Well, you're welcome to rest here until you're healed. I don't get many visitors, so the spare bedroom is all yours." The alien tilted its head, a gesture that reminded Nathan of Max when the dog was confused. "You offer shelter to an unknown entity? Is this common among your species?" Nathan chuckled, the sound rusty from disuse. "Not common, no, but I've spent my life patching up people in need. Don't see why that should change just because you're not from around here." The alien was silent for a moment, its large black eyes studying Nathan intently. "Your designation is?" "Nathan. Nathan Brooks." "Nathan Brooks," the alien repeated, the name sounding strange in its mouth. "I am. The closest approximation in your language would be Zaylor." "Well, Zaylor, welcome to Earth. Specifically, Montana. It's not much, but it's home." Zaylor nodded again, a gesture it seemed to have adopted to communicate with Nathan. Your home is adequate. I am grateful for your hospitality. As they sat in silence for a moment, Nathan realized he had 1,000 questions burning in his mind. Where had Zaylor come from? Were there others like it? How long had aliens been observing Earth? But the exhaustion evident in Zaylor's posture made him hold his tongue. There would be time for questions later. Let me show you to the spare room, Nathan said, standing. You look like you could use some rest. As he led Zaylor inside, Max followed cautiously, keeping a wary eye on their unusual guest. The cabin was small but comfortable, with a main room that served as both living room and kitchen and 2 bedrooms off to the side. The spare room was simply furnished with a bed, a dresser, and a small desk. It's not much, Nathan apologized, but the bed's comfortable. Zaylor looked around the room with obvious curiosity. This is more than sufficient. My gratitude, Nathan Brooks. Just Nathan is fine, he replied. Get some rest. We can talk more in the morning. As Nathan closed the door, he leaned against the wall of the hallway, suddenly feeling the weight of the day's events. An alien. An actual alien was sleeping in his spare bedroom. He ran a hand through his hair, wondering if perhaps he'd finally lost his mind after all those years of seeing too much death and destruction. Max nudged his hand with a cold nose, bringing him back to reality. Well, boy, Nathan whispered. Looks like we've got ourselves an interesting situation here. The dog whined softly in response. Nathan barely slept that night, his mind racing with questions and concerns. What if Zaylor wasn't alone? What if others came looking for it? Should he contact someone about this? But who would he even call? The government? The military? After his experiences overseas, Nathan's trust in authority figures was minimal at best. By the time dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Nathan had made a decision. He would help Zaylor recover, and then let the alien go on its way. No authorities, no complications. Just one being helping another. The smell of coffee and bacon filled the cabin as Nathan prepared breakfast. He had no idea if Zaylor could even eat human food, but hospitality demanded he at least make the offer. A sound from the hallway made Nathan turn. Zaylor stood in the doorway, looking slightly less battered than the night before. The alien was observing the kitchen with obvious fascination. Good morning, Nathan said, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy in a situation that was anything but normal. Did you sleep well? Your rest cycle accommodation was satisfactory, Zaylor replied. The gravitational pull on this planet is stronger than I am accustomed to, but not unmanageable. Nathan gestured to the small kitchen table. Have a seat. I made breakfast, though I'm not sure if our food is compatible with your system. Zaylor moved to the table with that same strange gait, somewhere between a glide and a shuffle. I have studied your nutritional requirements. While some of your compounds would be toxic to my species, proteins and simple carbohydrates are acceptable. Nathan raised an eyebrow as he set a plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of Zaylor. So, bacon is out then? Correct. The preserved meat product contains compounds that would cause digestive distress. Nathan sat across from Zaylor with his own plate, complete with several strips of bacon. You've studied us pretty thoroughly, huh? Zaylor picked up a fork with careful deliberation, mimicking Nathan's movements. Your species has been of interest to us for some time. Us? Nathan prompted, trying to keep his tone casual. There are more of you? Zaylor paused, fork halfway to what Nathan assumed was its mouth, though there were no visible lips, just a small opening that seemed to expand and contract as it spoke. Yes, my species is extensive. We have established observation posts in several star systems. Nathan took a sip of his coffee, using the moment to gather his thoughts. So, you've been watching Earth? For how long? Approximately 200 of your years, Zaylor replied, sampling the eggs with cautious curiosity. Your technological advancement has been noteworthy. 200 years, Nathan repeated, trying to wrap his head around the idea. Since the Industrial Revolution, then. Correct. The rapid development of your technology triggered our initial interest. Nathan watched as Zaylor continued to eat, seemingly finding the eggs acceptable. And your ship? I'm guessing you weren't supposed to crash land in the Montana wilderness. Something that might have been a Psi escaped Zaylor. Correct again. I was on a routine observation mission when my vessel experienced a catastrophic system failure. The cause is unknown. Do you need to contact your people? Let them know you're okay. Zaylor's black eyes fixed on Nathan with an intensity that made him shift uncomfortably in his seat. That would not be advisable at this time. The circumstances of my landing are complicated. Nathan recognized evasion when he heard it, having used enough of it himself over the years. Whatever had brought Zaylor to Earth, it wasn't as simple as a system failure. But he decided not to push. Everyone was entitled to their secrets. Fair enough, Nathan said, finishing his breakfast. My policy is not to ask questions people don't want to answer. This is an unusual policy for your species, Zaylor observed. Human curiosity is well documented. Nathan smiled wryly. Yeah, well, I've found that respecting boundaries tends to work out better in the long run. After breakfast, Nathan showed Zaylor around the property. The cabin sat on 10 acres of land, bordered by national forest on two sides. A small stream ran through the property, providing fresh water year-round. Nathan had built a workshop behind the cabin where he did woodworking, a hobby he'd taken up to occupy his hands and mind after retiring. Zaylor seemed particularly interested in the workshop, examining the various tools with careful attention. You create objects from organic materials, the alien observed. For what purpose? Nathan picked up a half-finished wooden box he'd been working on. No real purpose, I guess. It's just something to do, something to focus on. A meditation practice, Zaylor suggested. I suppose you could call it that, Nathan agreed, surprised by the alien's understanding. As they walked back toward the cabin, Zaylor suddenly stopped, looking up at the clear blue sky. Your star is particularly radiant today. Nathan followed Zaylor's gaze. The sun? Yeah, it's a nice day. Not a cloud in sight. On my world, the sky is perpetually clouded. Our atmosphere contains suspended particulates that filter our star's radiation. Sounds gloomy, Nathan commented. It is home, Zaylor replied simply. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Nathan would make breakfast, adjusting the menu to accommodate Zaylor's dietary restrictions. They would spend the mornings outside, with Nathan working in his vegetable garden or doing maintenance around the property, while Zaylor observed or occasionally assisted when asked. The afternoons were often spent in the workshop, where Zaylor showed a surprising aptitude for woodworking, once the alien understood the basic principles. Nathan found himself growing accustomed to Zaylor's presence. The alien was a quiet companion, speaking only when it had something to say, which suited Nathan just fine. They discussed Earth's history, technology, and culture, with Zaylor asking insightful questions that often made Nathan look at his own world from a new perspective. What Nathan didn't discuss was his past. The years in the military, the things he'd seen and done, the reasons he now lived alone in the woods. These were topics he avoided, and Zaylor seemed to respect his reticence. It was on the 5th day of Zaylor's stay that everything changed. They were sitting on the porch in the evening, watching as the sun dipped below the tree line. Max lay at Nathan's feet, having finally accepted Zaylor's presence. Your injuries seem to be healing well, Nathan observed, noting that Zaylor moved with greater ease now. Yes, my biological systems are functioning at near-optimal levels again, Zaylor confirmed. So what's your plan now? Nathan asked, trying to ignore the strange pang he felt at the thought of Zaylor leaving. I'm assuming you need to get back to your people eventually. Zaylor was quiet for a long moment. Nathan, there is something I must tell you. My presence here is more significant than I have indicated. Nathan turned to look at Zaylor, a sense of unease growing in his chest. What do you mean? My designation is not merely Zaylor. I am Supreme Commander Zaylor of the Galactic Conclave. My vessel was not on a routine mission. It was attacked. Nathan stared at Zaylor, trying to process this information. Attacked? By who? By members of my own species. There has been discord within our leadership structure. A faction that believes interaction with developing worlds should be more direct, more controlling. And you disagree, Nathan guessed. Zaylor's head dipped in affirmation. I have advocated for a policy of non-interference. to allow species such as yours to develop according to your own path. So this was what, a coup? A strategic elimination attempt, Zaylor corrected. Had they succeeded, the faction supporting intervention would have majority control of the conclave. Nathan leaned back in his chair, trying to absorb the implications. And they think they succeeded? That you're dead. Correct. Which has provided me with a temporary advantage. However, it is only a matter of time before they discover the truth. A chill ran down Nathan's spine that had nothing to do with the cooling evening air. And when they do, they will come to complete their mission, Zaylor stated with simple certainty. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration that had become habitual over the years. So what you're saying is, I've been harboring not just any alien, but an alien political refugee who's got assassins on his tail. That is an accurate assessment, Zaylor confirmed. Great, Nathan muttered. Just great. I understand if you wish me to leave, Zaylor said. I have placed you in potential danger without your informed consent. Nathan looked at Zaylor for a long moment. Supreme Commander or not, the alien still looked vulnerable sitting there in Nathan's too big flannel shirt, which he'd offered when Zaylor's suit had proven too damaged to be comfortable. No, Nathan said finally. You're not going anywhere. Not until we figure this out. Zaylor's large eyes blinked in apparent surprise. You would continue to offer assistance, knowing the risk. Nathan shrugged. I've never been great at turning away people who need help, even when they're not people, as it turns out. What might have been a smile flickered across Zaylor's face, a slight stretching of that small mouth opening. Your compassion is remarkable. Don't go spreading that around, Nathan said with a wry smile. I've got a reputation as a grumpy hermit to maintain. That night, Nathan lay awake longer than usual, turning over this new information in his mind. He'd gone from taking in an injured alien to being involved in what amounted to an interstellar political conflict. Part of him wanted to pack up and drive as far away as possible. But another part, the part that had joined the military to help people in the first place, wouldn't let him abandon Zaylor. The next morning, Nathan found Zaylor already in the kitchen, attempting to operate the coffee maker. The sight of the alien Supreme Commander puzzling over such a mundane appliance almost made Nathan laugh. Here, let me help with that, he offered, stepping forward to show Zaylor which buttons to press. Your technology is simultaneously primitive and needlessly complex, Zaylor observed. Nathan chuckled. That pretty much sums up humanity in general. As they sat with their coffee, Zaylor had developed a taste for it. Though insisted on an alarming amount of sugar, Nathan broached the subject that had kept him awake. So, these people who are after you, what's their time frame? How long before they figure out you're not actually dead? Zaylor set down the mug carefully. They will have already begun searching. However, this planet is not their primary concern. It may be some time before they direct resources here. But they will eventually, Nathan pressed. Yes, it is inevitable. Nathan nodded, having expected as much. Then we need a plan. You can't just keep hiding out in my cabin forever. I need to contact those still loyal to me, Zaylor said. But doing so risks revealing my location. Nathan thought for a moment. What about your ship? Is there anything salvageable? Any way to contact your allies without tipping off the bad guys? Zaylor considered this. The primary communications array was destroyed in the attack. However, the emergency beacon system operates on a different frequency. If I could modify it, I might be able to send a targeted message. All right then, Nathan said, standing up with newfound purpose. Let's go find your ship. Zaylor led the way through the forest, moving with a certainty that suggested its species had excellent navigational abilities. Nathan followed, carrying a backpack with tools, water, and some food. Max trotted alongside them, seemingly enjoying the expedition. After about 2 hours of hiking, they came to a small crater in the earth, partially concealed by fallen trees and underbrush. In the center lay what remained of Zaylor's spacecraft. It was smaller than Nathan had expected, about the size of a compact car, with a sleek, triangular design. The once metallic surface was now scorched and dented, with a large tear along one side. This is it? Nathan asked, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. I was expecting something bigger. It is a personal transport vessel, Zaylor explained. Designed for a single occupant on short-range missions. Nathan approached the craft cautiously. What do we need to salvage? Zaylor moved to the tear in the hull and reached inside, manipulating something Nathan couldn't see. A panel slid open, revealing a compartment filled with technology unlike anything Nathan had ever seen. It seemed to pulse with a faint blue light. The emergency beacon system is intact, Zaylor said, relief evident in its voice. I will need to reconfigure its transmission parameters to encode a secure message. How long will that take? Several hours, at minimum. Nathan nodded. Then we'd better get comfortable. He found a fallen log nearby and sat down, watching as Zaylor worked on the alien technology. The movements of Zaylor's four-fingered hands were precise and confident, reminding Nathan that despite the alien's sometimes vulnerable appearance, Zaylor was indeed a commander, someone accustomed to responsibility and authority. Can I ask you something? Nathan said after a while. Zaylor didn't look up from its work. Of course. Why Earth? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we must be pretty insignificant. Why do you care whether we're left alone to develop or not? Zaylor's hands paused briefly. Your species is unique in our experience. Your technological development has been extraordinarily rapid. Your capacity for both creation and destruction is unparalleled. Some see this as a threat. Others, like myself, see potential. Potential for what? For something new. Something unexpected. Zaylor looked up from the beacon. The universe is vast, Nathan Brooks, but after millions of years of civilization, patterns emerge. Species develop along predictable lines. But humans defy prediction. Nathan considered this. That doesn't sound like a particularly good thing. It is neither good nor bad. It simply is. But it makes you valuable. Worth protecting. The sincerity in Zaylor's voice made Nathan uncomfortable. He wasn't used to thinking of humanity as something special or worth preserving. His experiences had shown him too much of the darker side of human nature. I'm not sure we deserve that kind of protection, he said quietly. Zaylor tilted its head. Worthiness is not a factor in biological diversity. Each species contributes to the tapestry of existence in its own way. Before Nathan could respond, a sudden high-pitched whine emanated from the beacon. Zaylor quickly adjusted something, and the sound stopped. Is that supposed to happen? Nathan asked, alarmed. No, Zaylor replied. Its movement's becoming more urgent. The beacon has been remotely activated. They have found us. A cold dread settled in Nathan's stomach. How? How did they find us so quickly? The beacon contains a quantum entanglement component. Even inactive, it can be traced by those with the correct technology. Zaylor's hands moved rapidly over the device. I must complete the message before they arrive. How long do we have? Minutes. Perhaps less. Nathan stood, scanning the forest around them. Max was already on alert, his ears perked and a low growl building in his throat. Finish your message, Nathan said, his voice shifting into the commanding tone he'd used in combat situations. I'll keep watch. As Zaylor worked frantically on the beacon, Nathan positioned himself where he could see in all directions. The forest seemed too quiet now, the birds having gone silent. Even the insects had stopped their constant chorus. Nathan knew from experience that when the natural world went silent, danger was near. Max's growl deepened, and the dog moved to stand between Nathan and the eastern treeline. Nathan followed the dog's gaze, but could see nothing unusual among the pines. Then, a movement caught his eye. Something shimmered, like heat rising from asphalt on a hot day. But it was moving, advancing toward them with purpose. Zaylor, Nathan said quietly, not taking his eyes off the disturbance. We've got company. I need more time, Zaylor replied, still working on the beacon. I don't think we have it, Nathan said as the shimmer solidified into a form. The figure that emerged from the distortion was similar to Zaylor in basic shape, but taller and broader. Its skin was a darker blue, and instead of Zaylor's simple, damaged suit, this alien wore what appeared to be armor, segments of metallic material that shifted and adjusted with its movements. In its hand was a device that Nathan immediately recognized as a weapon, despite its alien design. Max barked furiously, the sound echoing through the quiet forest. "Supreme Commander Zaylor," the new alien said in a voice that was deeper and harsher than Zaylor's. "Your survival is inconvenient." Zaylor turned from the beacon, facing the newcomer with a dignity that impressed Nathan. "Commander Vex, I should have known they would send you. The Council believed you were destroyed. I knew better." Vex's black eyes shifted to Nathan. "And you have been consorting with the natives. How predictably sentimental." Nathan stepped forward, placing himself partially between Vex and Zaylor. "This is private property. You're trespassing." A sound emerged from Vex that Nathan realized was laughter, though it held no warmth. The human speaks as if its primitive territorial claims have meaning. "Nathan," Zaylor said quietly, "you should leave. This is not your conflict." "I'm not going anywhere," Nathan replied, his eyes still on Vex and the weapon in his hand. "Noble, but futile," Vex commented. "Stand aside, human. My quarrel is with Zaylor, not your species. At least, not yet." "That's not very reassuring," Nathan said. He glanced back at Zaylor, who had surreptitiously returned to working on the beacon while Vex was distracted. "What exactly is your plan here? Kill Zaylor and then what? Invade Earth?" "Not invade," Vex corrected. "Guide. Direct. Your species has potential, but left unchecked, you will destroy yourselves and possibly others. We would simply accelerate your development along more constructive paths." "Under your control," Nathan guessed. "Under our guidance," Vex insisted. "The distinction is important." "Not to us, it isn't," Nathan said. "We prefer to make our own mistakes." Vex's expression, though alien, conveyed clear disdain. A child prefers to touch the flame until it learns the burn. A parent knows better. Behind him, Nathan heard a soft beep from the beacon, followed by Zaylor's whispered, "It is done." Vex heard it too. The alien's posture changed, becoming more aggressive. "What have you done, Zaylor?" "I have ensured that your faction's plans will not succeed," Zaylor replied, stepping up to stand beside Nathan. "The Conclave now knows of your treachery." Vex raised the weapon, pointing it directly at Zaylor. "Your message will not reach them in time." Nathan, operating on instinct honed from years in combat zones, moved before his conscious mind could process the danger. He lunged forward, tackling Vex just as a beam of intense blue light shot from the weapon. The beam missed Zaylor by inches, instead hitting a nearby tree, which immediately crystallized and then shattered into thousands of glittering fragments. Nathan and Vex crashed to the forest floor, the alien's armor digging painfully into Nathan's chest. Despite Vex's slender appearance, the alien was incredibly strong, easily throwing Nathan off and scrambling back to its feet. "Foolish human," Vex hissed, the weapon now trained on Nathan. "Your interference is pointless." Max chose that moment to attack, leaping at Vex with a ferocity Nathan had never seen in his normally gentle dog. The German Shepherd's teeth latched onto Vex's arm, causing the alien to cry out in a high, keening sound that made Nathan's ears ring. Zaylor took advantage of the distraction, launching itself at Vex with surprising speed. The two aliens grappled, their movements too quick for Nathan to follow clearly. The weapon fell to the forest floor, and Nathan scrambled to retrieve it. The device was heavier than it looked, with no obvious trigger mechanism that Nathan could identify. But there was no time to figure it out. Vex had gained the upper hand, pinning Zaylor against a tree, one hand wrapped around what would be Zaylor's throat on a human. "Hey!" Nathan shouted, brandishing the weapon. "Let him go." Vex turned, black eyes narrowing at the sight of the human holding the alien technology. "You have no idea how to operate that device." Nathan smiled grimly. "Want to bet?" "I'm a quick study." His fingers moved over the surface of the weapon, searching for anything that might activate it. He felt a slight depression on the underside and pressed, hoping he wasn't about to blow himself up. Nothing happened. Vex's mouth opening stretched in what Nathan interpreted as a smirk. "As I said, human. Pointless." The alien turned its attention back to Zaylor, who was struggling weakly against Vex's grip. Nathan felt a surge of desperate anger. He couldn't let Zaylor die, not after the alien had trusted him, had shown him a glimpse of a universe larger and more complex than he'd ever imagined. In his frustration, Nathan did the one thing that humans throughout history have done when technology fails them. He struck the weapon against a nearby rock. To his utter shock, the device hummed to life, emitting a soft blue glow. Vex spun around, alarm evident in its posture. "Do not." Nathan didn't wait to hear the rest. He pointed the weapon at Vex and pressed the depression again. This time, the beam of blue light shot forth, striking Vex in the center of its armored chest. The alien staggered backward, releasing Zaylor, who slumped to the ground. For a moment, Nathan thought he'd killed Vex. But instead of crystallizing like the tree, Vex seemed to be struggling against some invisible force. The alien's body shimmered, similar to the distortion that had preceded its appearance. "What's happening?" Nathan asked, keeping the weapon trained on Vex. Zaylor, breathing heavily, pulled itself to a sitting position. "The weapon, it's not designed to kill. It's a phase disruptor. It's forcing him back into his ship's transport system." Indeed, Vex was becoming less solid by the second, the alien's form blurring at the edges. "This changes nothing," Vex snarled, the voice distorting as the alien began to disappear. "The Council will send others. Your primitive human cannot protect you forever." With a final flash of blue light, Vex vanished completely. Nathan lowered the weapon, his heart pounding in his chest. "Is he gone for good?" "Temporarily," Zaylor replied, slowly getting to its feet. "The disruptor forces a safety recall to the nearest compatible transport system. Vex will be back on his ship, but unable to use the transport technology again for some time. So we have a head start," Nathan said, helping Zaylor steady itself. "Did your message get through?" Zaylor moved back to the beacon, checking its status. "Yes. My loyal supporters within the Conclave will have received it by now. They will take action against Vex faction." "What kind of action?" Nathan asked. "Political, primarily. The Conclave operates on consensus. With evidence of Vex's direct interference on a developing world, his faction will lose significant support." Nathan nodded, though the intricacies of alien politics were beyond his comprehension. "And what about you? What happens now?" Zaylor looked up at the sky, visible in patches through the forest canopy. "Now, I must return. My presence here is problematic." Nathan felt a surprising pang of disappointment. Despite the danger and the strangeness of the situation, he'd grown to enjoy Zaylor's company over the past few days. The cabin would seem emptier without the alien's quiet, thoughtful presence. "I understand," Nathan said. "How long until your people can get here?" "Not long. The beacon's signal will guide them." Zaylor turned its black eyes to Nathan. "You have done more than you know, Nathan Brooks. Your actions today may have preserved your species' right to self-determination." Nathan shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Zaylor said firmly. "You did what only a human would do. You acted without calculation of personal benefit. You risked your life for a being not of your kind. Such behavior is rare in the universe." "I doubt that," Nathan argued. "Compassion can't be unique to humans." "Not unique, no. But your particular blend of impulsivity, courage, and compassion is distinctive. It is why I have advocated for your species' autonomy. Your unpredictability is your greatest strength." Nathan wasn't sure how to respond to that. He'd never considered impulsivity a strength before. In his military career, it had often been cited as a weakness, a tendency that put both himself and others at risk. Yet today, that same impulsivity had saved Zaylor's life. Max trotted up to them, seeming no worse for wear after his encounter with Vex. The dog nuzzled Nathan's hand, then, to Nathan's surprise, did the same to Zaylor. "Your companion is brave," Zaylor observed, carefully patting Max's head in imitation of how it had seen Nathan do it. "Yeah, he's a good boy," Nathan agreed, scratching Max behind the ears. They made their way back to the cabin in companionable silence, Nathan's mind spinning with the implications of everything that had happened. By the time they reached the clearing, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Will I see you again?" Nathan asked as they stood on the porch, watching the sunset. Zaylor was quiet for a moment. "It is unlikely. For your protection, as well as in accordance with our non-interference policies, contact will be minimal." Nathan nodded, having expected as much but still feeling disappointed. "Well, if you're ever in the neighborhood again, my porch is always open." What might have been a smile flickered across Zaylor's face. "I will remember that, Nathan Brooks." That night, they shared a final meal together. Nathan had prepared a simple dinner of vegetable stew, which Zaylor seemed to find acceptable. They talked about inconsequential things: the weather, the woodworking projects Nathan had planned, the curious habits of Max, carefully avoiding mention of Vex or the Conclave or the fact that Zaylor would soon be leaving. After dinner, as they sat on the porch with mugs of coffee, Zaylor finally broached the subject they'd been avoiding. "Nathan, when my people arrive, it would be best if you were not present." Nathan looked at Zaylor sharply. "Why? I thought your faction was the good guys." "They are," Zaylor assured him. "But even those who support non-interference would be concerned by the level of interaction we have had. It would be better for all if your involvement remained undocumented." Nathan considered this. "So what? I'm supposed to just leave you here and pretend none of this ever happened?" "It would be safer for you," Zaylor said. "Vex faction will be looking for any excuse to justify intervention. A human with knowledge of our existence could be such an excuse." Nathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not afraid of them, Zaylor. I know. That is precisely why you should be." The conviction in Zaylor's voice gave Nathan pause. "All right," he agreed reluctantly. "I'll take a drive into town tomorrow. Give you some privacy for your pickup." Zaylor's head dipped in acknowledgement. "Thank you. It is better this way." They fell silent again, watching as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Nathan found himself wondering which one of those distant points of light might be Zaylor's home sun. "Can you see your home from here?" he asked. Zaylor followed Nathan's gaze upward. "No. My world orbits a star beyond your visual range." "But," the alien pointed to a section of the sky, "the center of the conclave is in that direction, what you call the Andromeda Galaxy." Nathan stared at the faint smudge of light that was Andromeda, trying to comprehend the distances involved. "That's over 2 million light-years away. How do you travel such distances?" "We do not traverse the space between. We fold it." Nathan chuckled. "Right. Simple as that." "The principles are actually quite straightforward," Zaylor began, "based on the quantum entanglement of—" Nathan held up a hand. "I'm going to stop you right there. I barely passed high school physics." What might have been a laugh escaped Zaylor. "Perhaps that is for the best. Your species will discover these principles in your own time. If we don't blow ourselves up first," Nathan said wryly. "A possibility," Zaylor acknowledged. "But I have faith in your potential." The word choice surprised Nathan. Faith? That's a very human concept. Perhaps, or perhaps it is universal. The belief in possibilities yet unrealized. Nathan mulled this over as they sat in comfortable silence, the night deepening around them. He'd never been much for philosophical discussions before meeting Zaylor, but there was something about the alien's perspective that made him reconsider many things he'd taken for granted. Eventually, they retired for the night, Zaylor to the spare bedroom and Nathan to his own room. But sleep eluded Nathan. He lay awake, thinking about everything that had happened and what the next day would bring. By dawn, he'd made a decision. He found Zaylor already awake, standing by the kitchen window and watching the sunrise. "Your planet's rotation cycle is pleasantly brisk," Zaylor commented. "The rapid alternation between light and darkness has a certain vitality to it." "I've never thought about it that way," Nathan admitted. "Listen, Zaylor, about today. I've been thinking. Yes, I'll go into town like we discussed. But before I do, I want to give you something." Nathan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box, the one he'd been working on in his shop when Zaylor first arrived. He'd finished it during the night, unable to sleep. He handed the box to Zaylor. "It's not much, just something to remember Earth by." Zaylor took the box carefully, examining the smooth cherry wood and the simple design Nathan had carved into the lid. a stylized pine tree, representative of the forest around the cabin. "Open it," Nathan encouraged. Zaylor lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a small piece of blue fabric, was Nathan's military dog tag. "It's customary for soldiers to wear these for identification," Nathan explained. "I kept mine as a reminder of that part of my life. I want you to have it." Zaylor picked up the metal tag, running a four-fingered hand over the embossed letters of Nathan's name and service number. "This is significant to you." "It is," Nathan confirmed. "And now it's significant to both of us." Zaylor carefully placed the tag back in the box and closed the lid. "I will keep this safe, Nathan Brooks. It will serve as a reminder of what is worth protecting." Nathan nodded, a lump unexpectedly forming in his throat. "Good. That's good." An hour later, Nathan was ready to leave. He'd packed a small overnight bag, planning to stay in the nearest town until the following day. Max would accompany him, as Zaylor had suggested it would be safer for the dog as well. They stood in the driveway beside Nathan's old pickup truck, the morning sun casting long shadows across the clearing. "So," Nathan said, finding it surprisingly difficult to say goodbye, "I guess this is it." Zaylor nodded. "Yes. My transport should arrive by midday. Take care of yourself, Zaylor. Try not to get assassinated by any more of your colleagues." "I will exercise appropriate caution," Zaylor assured him, the alien's tone serious despite Nathan's attempt at humor. Nathan hesitated, then extended his hand. "In our culture, this is how we say goodbye to friends." Zaylor looked at the offered hand for a moment, then carefully extended its own, mimicking Nathan's gesture. The alien's skin was cool and smooth against Nathan's palm. "Goodbye, Nathan Brooks. May your species continue to defy prediction." Nathan smiled. "Goodbye, Supreme Commander. May your faith in us be justified." With that, Nathan got into his truck, Max jumping into the passenger seat beside him. He started the engine and began to drive down the long dirt road that led away from his cabin. In the rearview mirror, he could see Zaylor standing in the driveway, a solitary blue figure becoming smaller with distance. Nathan drove to the small town of Whitefish, about an hour from his cabin. He checked into a modest motel, then spent the day wandering the town with Max, trying not to think about what might be happening back at his home. That night, as he lay in the uncomfortable motel bed, Nathan found himself looking out the window at the stars, wondering if Zaylor was already among them, speeding back to a civilization Nathan could barely imagine. He returned to the cabin the following afternoon. As he drove up the dirt road, he half expected to find some sign of the alien visitation, a scorched circle in his yard, perhaps, or strange markings. But everything looked exactly as he'd left it. The cabin stood quiet and undisturbed in the clearing, with no indication that anything extraordinary had happened there. Nathan let Max out of the truck, and the dog immediately ran to the porch, sniffing around as if searching for Zaylor. Finding no trace of the alien, Max looked back at Nathan with what seemed like disappointment. "I know, boy," Nathan said. "I miss him too." Inside, the cabin felt emptier than it had before Zaylor's arrival. Nathan walked to the spare bedroom and pushed open the door. The bed was neatly made, with no sign that anyone had ever slept there. The only indication that Zaylor had existed at all was the absence of Nathan's flannel shirt, which the alien had been wearing. Nathan smiled at that. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the Andromeda Galaxy, a blue-skinned alien Supreme Commander might be wearing a faded red flannel shirt from Montana. Life gradually returned to normal, or what passed for normal in Nathan's solitary existence. He worked in his garden, did his woodworking, and took long walks with Max. But something had changed. When he looked up at the night sky now, he saw it differently. Not as a distant, abstract thing, but as a vast ocean full of life and complexity, civilizations rising and falling, politics and conflicts playing out among the stars. And sometimes, when he sat on his porch in the evening with his coffee, watching the sun set behind the mountains, Nathan imagined Zaylor sitting beside him, asking insightful questions about human nature or marveling at the rapidly changing colors of Earth's sky. 3 months after Zaylor's departure, Nathan was in town picking up supplies when he noticed a small crowd gathered around the television in the local diner. Curious, he stepped inside. On the screen was a news report about a series of unexplained phenomena occurring around the world. Unusual lights in the sky, electronic systems temporarily failing, and most intriguingly, reports of technological breakthroughs in renewable energy that seemed to have appeared simultaneously in research facilities across the globe. "It's aliens, I'm telling you," one of the locals was saying. "Government knows all about it. They're just keeping it quiet." Nathan said nothing, but a small smile played across his lips as he turned and left the diner. That night, he sat on his porch, looking up at the stars with a mug of coffee in his hand. "I hope that's not your doing, Zaylor," he said aloud to the empty air. "Thought you were all about non-interference." There was no response, of course, just the gentle rustling of pine needles in the breeze and the distant hooting of an owl. But as Nathan continued to gaze upward, a single shooting star traced a bright path across the sky, moving in a trajectory that seemed somehow deliberate, somehow meaningful. "Message received," Nathan murmured, raising his mug in a silent toast to the stars. 6 more months passed. The strange phenomena continued, always just subtle enough to be dismissed by skeptics, yet persistent enough to create a growing sense of anticipation among those willing to believe. New technologies emerged, particularly in the fields of medicine and environmental science, advancing human knowledge at an unprecedented rate. Nathan followed the news with interest but maintained his solitary lifestyle. Until one evening, as he was returning from a walk with Max, he found a visitor sitting on his porch. The man was tall and distinguished-looking, with salt and pepper hair and a crisp suit that seemed out of place in the Montana wilderness. He stood as Nathan approached. "Mr. Brooks?" the man asked. "Nathan Brooks." Nathan tensed, his hand automatically dropping to Max's collar. "Who's asking?" The man reached into his jacket and produced a government ID. "Colonel James Harrison, United States Air Force. I'm here about a matter of national security." Nathan's wariness increased. "I've been retired for 5 years, Colonel. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying." Harrison smiled thinly. "This isn't a recruitment pitch, Mr. Brooks. We have reason to believe you may have information about certain visitors to our planet." A chill ran down Nathan's spine, but he kept his expression neutral. "Don't know what you're talking about." "No." Harrison reached into his briefcase and pulled out a satellite image. He held it up for Nathan to see. It showed a thermal view of Nathan's property from above, with 2 distinct heat signatures visible, one human-shaped, one decidedly not. The timestamp indicated it was from 6 months ago. "Our surveillance satellites picked up some unusual readings in this area," Harrison explained. "And subsequent global events have only increased our interest." Nathan said nothing, his mind racing. Zaylor had warned him about this possibility, that his involvement could be used as justification for intervention. Harrison sighed at Nathan's silence. "Mr. Brooks, I'm not here to threaten or coerce you. Quite the opposite. We need your help." "My help?" Nathan repeated skeptically. "Yes. If you've had contact, if you know anything about their intentions, their capabilities, we need to understand. Not to exploit or to weaponize, but to prepare. To ensure humanity's best interests are represented." Nathan studied the colonel's face, trying to gauge his sincerity. "And if I did know something, which I'm not saying I do, why should I trust you with that information?" Harrison met his gaze steadily. "Because whatever's happening, it's bigger than any one nation or government. It's about the future of our species. And from what we can tell, that future is approaching faster than anyone expected." Nathan considered his options. He could deny everything, send Harrison away with nothing. But if Zaylor's faction was indeed subtly guiding human development, perhaps this was part of the process, humanity beginning to recognize and adapt to the reality of a wider universe. "Come inside," Nathan said finally. "We've got a lot to talk about." As he led the colonel into his cabin, Nathan thought about the small wooden box he'd given Zaylor, containing his dog tag and, unknown to the alien, a microchip with a simple message encoded in binary. "Humanity is ready when you are." Whether Zaylor had discovered that message, whether it had influenced the subtle interventions now occurring around the world, Nathan couldn't know. But he liked to think it had made a difference. Inside, as he began to tell a carefully edited version of his encounter with Zaylor, Nathan felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced since his military days. He was once again a bridge between worlds, a mediator in conflicts beyond his full understanding. But this time, the stakes were infinitely higher, the autonomy and future of his entire species. It all started right here, Nathan began, gesturing to the porch visible through the window, when a tired traveler needed a place to rest. Colonel Harrison listened intently, taking occasional notes. Outside, the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, the rapid alternation between light and darkness that Zaylor had found so vital, so uniquely Earth. And somewhere in the vast expanse of the Andromeda Galaxy, a blue-skinned Supreme Commander named Zaylor sat in chambers adorned with the signs of ancient authority, fingering a small metal tag engraved with a human name, remembering a porch in Montana and the unexpected compassion of a solitary man who had changed the course of galactic politics with a simple act of kindness. The debate among the conclave members grew heated, voices rising as arguments were presented for and against increased intervention in Earth's development. "They are advancing too rapidly," one counselor insisted. "Without guidance, they will become a threat to established order. Their unpredictability makes them dangerous," another agreed. "They must be controlled." Supreme Commander Zaylor, who had been listening silently, finally rose to speak. The chamber immediately fell quiet, respect for the commander's authority evident despite the recent challenges to Zaylor's leadership. "I have observed humans directly," Zaylor stated, the simple flannel shirt from Montana now preserved in a place of honor in the commander's private quarters. "I have experienced their capacity for compassion, for courage, for acceptance of difference. Yes, they are unpredictable. Yes, they are capable of great destruction. But they are also capable of great creation." Zaylor opened a hand, revealing Nathan's dog tag. "A human gave me this, at great personal risk, knowing nothing of me except that I needed help. Not because I could offer anything in return, not because of calculation or advantage, but simply because it was the right thing to do." The commander's gaze swept the chamber. That capacity to act beyond self-interest, to help even those different from themselves, that is what makes humans valuable to the universe. Not as subjects to be controlled, but as partners to be welcomed when they are ready. In the silence that followed, Zaylor could almost hear Nathan's voice. "May your faith in us be justified." And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.